Hey, it's the Cybersecurity Whisperer for the week of November 10th. Now, for those of you who have purchased the latest iPhone and upgraded to the new iOS 18, there's apparently a new security feature in iOS 18 that reboots iPhones that haven't been unlocked in a few days. And this is frustrating police and law enforcement while making it harder to break into suspects' iPhones. These, when an iPhone reboots, it enters a more secure, what's called before first unlock or BFU state. And now it seems Apple added Inactivity Reboot code in iOS 18.1 that triggers iPhones to restart after they've been locked for 4 days. Both iOS and Android devices enter this BFU state when they're restarted, and this requires you to enter your passcode or PIN to unlock your phone, and it limits what sort of data that forensics experts can extract. Now, the company has steadily made iPhones harder to compromise over the years, putting it at odds with law enforcement and raising the specter of government regulations requiring encryption backdoors. But Apple has repeatedly resisted authorities' requests to create these backdoors, although that certainly hasn't stopped law enforcement from, and the bad guys from finding their own workarounds. So very interesting there that Apple continues to really put privacy of its users first. Moving on to artificial intelligence, and continue to hear about AI every week, and there's more and more advancements. Well, this week we heard that AI increases financial fraud. This is at fintech. So, the AI is now sophisticated enough that bad actors can use it, after taking over a consumer's account in ways that simulate the actual person's behavior. And this creates another point of frustration for payment companies battling fraud. These advanced AI programs, they're now capable of mimicking the behavior of a real person. And this allows the fraudsters to evade financial institutions' monitoring systems that they have set up that's looking for unusual activity. So the ability to just spin up a model and create 10,000 people that look real, it's gotten much higher. And so these companies are having a much harder time determining what's fraudulent activity and what's not, because before some of the patterns that the bad guys would use were just so over the top and out of the ordinary. But with AI, it's able to go look at these users' account activity and only make small changes that would be similar to what they would already be doing and still give the bad guys pay. But a good use of AI, in another article this week, Google, their AI agent had found a ZeroDay in a popular database engine. Their highly experimental AI agent discovered a previously undetected and exploitable memory flaw in the popular open source database engine SQLite. The discovery of the stack buffer underflow flaw in development version of SQLite marks the tech giant's first real-world vulnerability uncovered with an AI agent outside the test sandbox. SQLite fixed the flaw in October, the same day Google reported it. AI agents, they're large language models designed to automatically carry out predetermined tasks without human oversight. Google's model and the project it was developed under is called Big Sleep, and it's run by Project Zero DeepMind collaboration. Big Sleep is an evolution of Project Zero's Naptime, which is a framework Google set up in June to allow LLMs to autonomously perform basic vulnerability research. The framework was designed to help LLMs test software for potential flaws in a human-like workflow, including a code browser, debugger, reporter tool, and sandbox environment for running Python scripts and recording that output. Now, in the project's latest case, researchers instructed the Gemini 1.5 Pro Run Big Sleep to consider a previous SQLite vulnerability, asking it to look for similar flaws in the newer versions of the software. And they provided it with recent commit messages and diff changes, instructing it to find unresolved issues in the SQLite repository. Now, researchers said that the Big Sleep could autonomously make connections between the previous SQLite vulnerability and other parts of the code, develop a test case to run in the sandbox, generate a root cause analysis of the flaw in a publicly released version of SQLite, and put it together a report after triggering a crash with the exploitable bug. I mean, the summary of the AI agent's finding was almost ready to report directly. And so this certainly shows tremendous defensive potential. Finding vulnerabilities in software before it's even released means there's no scope for the attackers to compete, because the vulnerabilities are fixed before attackers even have the chance to use them. So good news there. Obviously, I'm sure Google will charge for that, but still, it's nice to see a positive use for AI. Now, for those in the U.S., and actually for those anywhere, you were more definitely aware that we had a presidential election last week, that Republican Donald Trump will return to the White House in January, and many are concerned that this could bring significant changes to technology and cybersecurity policy in the U.S., potentially reshaping federal approaches to artificial intelligence regulation, industry investment, and national security against rising digital threats. Now, Trump's previous administration spearheaded an antitrust lawsuit against Google with 11 state attorneys general, confronted Chinese technology manufacturers, and bolstered national cybersecurity through stronger public-private partnerships. The incoming administration has an opportunity to maintain U.S. leadership in the global AI race while creating a comprehensive or competitive tax system, advancing key domestic trade, economic, and national security objectives. And finally, it's interesting that technology executives reassess their IT resilience in CrowdStrike outage aftermath. So, technology executives are certainly concerned about their operational resilience in the wake of the global cloud systems outages caused by the faulty CrowdStrike security update in July. And most were not happy with what they found, according to a survey of 1,000 senior cloud architects and engineering executives. More than 9 in 10 respondents said they were aware of operational weaknesses within their organization that leave IT systems vulnerable to costly service interruptions. Nearly half acknowledged they hadn't done enough to improve resilience. And every company surveyed reported revenue losses from outages in the past year. So a lot to be done. We sometimes don't talk about the business continuity and disaster recovery. We think about just the business continuity, regardless of the source of the outage. If you just have regular system outages, maybe hardware failure, power failure, working on that resiliency and making sure you're able to quickly recover when something bad happens. A lot of folks don't want to spend the investment, pay me now or pay me later. And there's certainly a balance, just like security, that you make sure that you've got a good resilience plan. Many of you may have heard of Schneider Electric. They're huge. Many of the smart devices in the power grid, they continue to be really targeted, and they are investigating another cyber intrusion after threat actors gain access to their platform. They said this on Monday of last week. They're investigating a cyber incident following claims by a suspected threat actor that it had gained access to company data. It involves unauthorized access to one of their internal project execution tracking platforms, which is hosted within, they say, an isolated environment. And the company immediately mobilized its global incident response team, and the company spokesperson said that their products and services were not affected by the incident. It must be something internal only. Now, for those of you that are Palo Alto customers, attackers are actively exploiting a critical vulnerability in Palo Alto Networks Expedition, which is the security vendor's tool for migrating customers over from other vendors. CISA, added it as a CVE this week, 2024-5910. They put it in its known exploited vulnerabilities catalog. Palo Alto alerted customers to the vulnerability July 10th and issued a patch via software update. And at the time, the vendor said there was no evidence of any active exploitation, but the missing authentication for a critical function vulnerability in this software, it was rated a CVSS 9.3 out of 10, so very high. And it can allow an attacker to retrieve admin account takeover and gain access to configuration secrets, credentials, and other data imported into the migration tool. So if you're a Palo Alto customer or you're migrating over to become one using this tool, you certainly need to pay attention and make sure it's patched. That's all for this week, and hope you have a great week. Take care.